Plaquemine Parish Council, May the 14th, 2020. Meeting is now called to order at 7:14 p.m. We'll have roll call, please.
Councilmember Bartholomew. It appears that he left the meeting. Councilmember Black.
Here.
Councilmember Arbro.
Here.
Councilmember Gooey.
Here.
Councilmember Russo.
Here.
Councilmember Newberry.
Here.
Councilmember LaFrance.
Here.
Councilmember Blank.
Here.
Councilmember Kognovich.
Here.
Let the minutes reflect that all members are present except Councilmember Bartholomew.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, there is no executive session for today, no proclamations. Item number 4, status report by the parish president.
Mr. Lapine.
Good afternoon, guys. Just a few things. We are still holding conference calls on Fridays at 10 a.m. with all the elected officials. Please join us tomorrow. The curfew will be lifted on Thursday night. Talk with the sheriff, so they're going to lift the curfew. And tomorrow we'll begin phase 1 opening plan, which mirrors the governor's proclamation. And we will be open responsibly, and we look for a successful reopening, and we're going to take it slowly, and our number 1 priority is safety. So that's all I really have, and thank you, guys.
Mr. Chairman, my apologies. We do have a discussion item for the parish, for the status report by the parish president. Number 1, discussion regarding the recent mailers with the cable bills citing the franchise authority and legal department action from Councilmember Russo.
Mr. Russo?
Yes, I think Mr. Helmer sent out an email to everyone. I assume he copied everyone, saying that the franchise agreement had expired. I don't know what year. He said 2015, but is that an accurate date, Mr. Helmer, of when that expired? Because I remember receiving correspondence from you when you were in the private sector looking to be a consultant to the parish to help us negotiate the new franchise agreement.
That was why, because that was in 2015 when it expired.
And if we would have renewed it, what would have happened?
You would have had a little bit more leverage on requesting things from the cable company. At that time, you would have still gotten the exact same amount of, you were making 3%, and then when the company sold, they went to the state franchise rate of 5%. So ultimately, you would still get the 5% from that point on, but it's just been dropped by, once CMA sold, it was given over to the, we had the ordinance passed to where the new company could buy it. And that intermediate company did not renew a franchise or apply for one. Now it's changed hands again, and they are requesting a state franchise. And like, you know, it says the franchise authority will ultimately still be Plaquemines Parish, but it will be under the state rules where the state, where they will collect the 5% and the state will administer it to us directly.
And will they keep an administrative fee?
No, the state does not keep any administrative fee.
All right, so there's really nothing we can do to increase the rate or revenue stream there.
No, the FCC set the rate at 5%, and that's pretty much where we're at today.
All right. Well, thank you for clearing that up. Back to the president's report. There are 3 items on the agenda today to borrow money and to go into further debt. At the meeting that we had to discuss the budget, we were told that you were working on a plan, and that it was my position that, you know, I'm not ready to go borrow any money until we see what your plan is. Is that getting any closer to being revealed to us?
Yes, we're working on getting you the plan, and if you don't vote on the resolution today for borrowing money, we'll just come back to you in September, October that we need more cash. So
Right. Well, a couple of questions on when we get to those items on the agenda. I guess I'll wait for that.
okay.
Councilmember LaFrance, we have two people with their hands raised. The first one is Councilmember Newberry and then Councilmember Black.
Ms. Newberry.
Yes, I just want to say that I want to thank Kirk. We had Second Harvest today in Oakville. It was a success. I want to thank Kirk for getting the parish workers involved on helping with that situation. It was an exciting day that we were nonstop most of the morning, and it definitely wore me out. So anyway, we're looking forward to, I think, another, can you hear me?
Yes.
We're looking forward to another Second Harvest, and I think we're going to try to get together and have a conversation somewhere in Belchase. So thank you very much.
I just wanted to, a personal comment, Trudy. Thank you very much for, I don't think I've ever seen you work so hard. But you and your husband, Chris, really did a great job today with the young people. There was a lot of young people out there, and I was excited to see that. They moved a lot of food and fed a lot of people. So I just want to really personally thank you. And we will have some other dates that will come available with Second Harvest. As soon as we get them pinpointed, we'll get them out to y'all.
Yeah, and I really want to thank my assistant. She worked hard too, so she was a big help, and she was very willing to help. So I want to thank her also, Stephanie Miller. So, okay.
I just wanted to let everyone know that Councilmember Bartholomew has joined as an attendee, and I am able to allow him.
I couldn't hear y'all. I could hear y'all, but y'all couldn't hear me.
Right,
know what's
because
on.
you're signed in as an
The
attendee.
Yeah, the last ordinance, I voted yes.
Okay. Mr. Black?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to comment in regards to Mr. Russo's comment. Mr. Russo, I totally agree with you on the urge and necessity for the administration to come up with some plans. However, I think after the meetings last week, they proposed a few plans. I'm a little, I wouldn't say discouraged, but I think the onus lies on the council at this point. I think the administration has provided us some things, and it seems like the only thing we want to talk about is getting rid of telephone lines and other nominal types of cost-saving measures. I mean, we know what the big issues are. I mean, you and I have talked about this for the last 6 years. I think it's time that and the administration has brought those up and showed us those figures. I mean, what else can they do? It's time for us as a council to actually look at this thing seriously. We're talking, and I'll say it again, $7.5 million this year, and we're going to lose the BP funds in 2 years. That's $4.5 million, and then the deficit that's going to take place next year. I mean, we got to get serious, and I keep banging that drum, and I just encourage my colleagues to let's start looking at those things as opposed to, we got to make tough decisions, and that's why we got elected. And it may not be popular, but it's something that we have to do. And I'm not putting that on the administration at this point. I'm putting that on us, and that's all.
Councilmember Roussel has his hand raised.
Yes. Well, Mr. Black, I hadn't seen anything from the administration that you're referring to. I'm not sure what you're referring to. I asked Mr. Lapine just now when he was going to present his plan, and he said he was working on it and he would be revealing it soon. So that's what I've been relying on. And then when we start getting into, the amounts of money that we're borrowing, if you realize, you talk about $4.5 million of BP money going away. Actually, it's going to be about $10 million of one-time money in this budget this year. And to borrow another $7.5 million puts us down probably $17.5 million for next year when you add it together. So the numbers are a lot worse than what we're talking about picking up and moving on with plans. And I'm here, the parish president presents a budget to us, and I don't think that it's entirely up to us to revamp the workforce or whatever he wants to do, his plan. I think he makes his recommendation, and once he puts his recommendation on the table, we act on it. So if he's got a plan to plug $10 million this year, plus the 7.5 that's lost, I'd like to see it. And I was holding back on my comments about the refinancing. We've got an item on the agenda today for $100 million refinancing. When you add up the figures, we only owe $72 million for those two items. So I don't know what the rest of that money is for, but I mean, those are the type of things that I think need to be massaged, as well as what is Congress doing? If Congress and Cassidy's bill passes, then we may be able to be made whole for the loss of revenue this year. So to jump into more debt is not my way of handling this problem. And that's why I'd like to see what the plan is. It's got to be a little bit of everything, from what I understand.
Councilmember Black has his hand raised.
Mr. Black?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I absolutely agree with you, Mr. Russo, and I'm not going to vote, and I cannot vote on a loan at this time. And I think we've had that discussion. However, the administration worked, at my request about and I think at your request as well, about the leasing and rental options. And that's $1.2 million. So, I mean, so we're talking about filling holes on big ticket items, and that's one of them. And we kind of just broadly pass over it, and we make, comments about, well, let's go ahead and rent it and make, possibly make $25,000 to $45,000 a year. I mean, that doesn't do us any good. As you well know, as everybody should know, we're out of cash, and the cash flow and then filling those big ticket gaps is the solution. So look, if we don't want to sell a building or we don't want to sell real property, that's fine. We can keep losing money on the operational costs and maintenance all out and make pennies, which is not going to do anything for us. I mean, the amount of money that we're going to make on a rental of the Popich building is enough to pay one of the janitors an annual salary and health benefits. So that's one employee. That to me is not thinking out of the box in this type of situation. And I've got called by the administration on a certain few ordinances to add money to the water bill for certain things. And I mean, like I said before, that's the last thing I want to do is tax our way out of this thing. But I agree with you. I'm not taking out a loan at this point. I think the administration has provided us with a good bit of solutions. I mean, look, this is a tough topic, right? The ferries. I mean, we talked about that. I mean, but that's a $5 million, operation a year. We got to seriously talk about it. I mean, and there's some other things too. So, I can't put it all on the administration, Mr. Russo. I'll put a little bit on them, but I think that I pushed them quite a bit, and we all have, and they've come through with some solutions. We just have to have a discussion about it. And I wish we can honestly, have a good discussion amongst this council and make some tough decisions. Because that's all I have on this item.
Okay.
Councilmember, I'm sorry.
Could we please just stay on the item that we are on, and we are on dealing with the mail, with the cable bills, the franchise authority. Anything in that item? Because we have 3 items that we could talk about dealing with the budget and everything. So
Councilmember Russo has his hand raised. I don't know.
No, yeah, I'm finished with the cable bill.
Okay,
My apologies, Mr. Chairman.
no problem. Let's move to the next item, please.
Update by the charter directors.
The updates were emailed out to all the council members. Thank you.
Is there any questions for the directors? We'll move to the next item.
Bids and advertisements, we have not received any. Number 6, beer and liquor licenses, we have not received any. Number 7, building permits, construction permits. Mr. Chairman, we have a total of 16. Would you like to take any in globo?
Yes, we would like to take 1 and 16 in global.
7A1, Paul E. Riviere III, application number 2019-520, dated August the 5th, 2019. Install 3 slip boat shed, dock, and bulkhead. 118 Cypress Lane, Wood Park campsites, Councilmember LaFrance. And number 16, Robert J. Nolan, application number 2020-304, dated May 4th, 1920. 1 slip boathouse, boat hoist, and deck, 704 Martin Lane, Port Sulphur, Councilmember LaFrance.
I so offered.
Second.
Second by Mr. Panovich. Any questions? Roll call vote.
Councilmember Bartholomew,
Yes.
Councilmember Black,
Abstain.
Councilmember Arbro,
Yes.
Councilmember Gooey.
Yep.
Councilmember Roussel,
Yes.
Councilmember Newberry,
Yes.
Councilmember LaFrance,
Yes.
Councilmember Blank,
Yes.
Councilmember Koknovich,
Yes.
and the permits are adopted by a vote of 8-1.
Okay, thank you. We'll take item 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, and go vote.
I'll offer.
What about 15?
15, we want to take it by itself.
Okay.
Uh,
7A2.
Wait,
Hill-
Councilmember Bartholomew,
yes. What it is, Mr. LaFrance, is people doing boring samples on a coal plant property. That's all, redoing the road. That's all that is.
Oh, okay, because you told me that you had wanted to take it
Right,
back.
because I didn't know what it was about. That's why I forgot to tell you about that. So we
Okay.
can take it in Gloco.
Well,
Okay.
it makes sense though to take it by itself because it's not a Hill
All
Code
related.
permit. Yeah.
Oh, whatever y'all want, just fine.
Yeah, Louisiana fruit, 182.
Take 4 out.
Okay, we'll take 4 out, and we'll take 4 out,
Mhm.
and
4 and
15,
15 now.
right.
Okay, 7A2, Hillcore Energy Company, application number 2020-265, dated April 20th, 2020, prop wash, install pile clusters, drill the Alexa North 1 prospect, install wellhead protector, 6-inch flow line and 3-inch gas lift line, Bay Long area, Councilmember Blaine. Number 3, Hillcore Energy Company, application number 2020-266, dated April the 20th, 2020, prop wash, install pile clusters, drill the Alexa North 2 prospect, install wellhead protector, 6-inch flow line and 3-inch gas lift line, Bay Long area. Number 5, Hillcore Energy Company, application number 2020-285, dated April 27th, 2020. Prop wash, install pile clusters, drill the Calcutta 1A prospect, install wellhead protector, 6-inch flow line and 3-inch gas lift line, Billet Bay area, Councilmember Blank. Number 6, Hillcore Energy Company, application number 2020-286, dated April 27, 2020. Prop wash, install pile clusters, drill the Calcutta 2 prospect, install wellhead protector, 6-inch flow line and 3-inch gas lift line, Billet Bay area, Councilmember Blank. Number 7, Hillcore Energy Company, application number 2020-287, dated April 27, 2020. Prop wash, install pile clusters, drill the Calcutta 3 prospect, install wellhead protector, 6-inch flow line and 3-inch gas lift line, Billet Bay area, Councilmember Blank. Number 8, Hillcore Energy Company, application number 2020-288, dated April 27, 2020. Prop wash, install pile clusters, drill the Calcutta 4 prospect, install wellhead protector, 6-inch flow line and 3-inch gas lift line, Billet Bay area, Councilmember Blank. Number 9, Hillcore Energy Company, application number 2020-289, dated April 27, 2020, prop wash, install pile clusters, sidetrack the existing SL 17267 number 5 well, install 6-inch flow line and 3-inch gas lift line, Billet Bay area. Number 10, Hillcore Energy Company, application number 2020-290, dated April 27, 2020, install 2-inch gas line, Long Bay Area Councilmember Cognovich. Number 11, Hillcore Energy Company, application number 2020-292, dated April 29, 2020. Install 4-inch salt water injection pipeline, install 75 treated pilings for a Newport injection header platform, Lake Grand Camille, Councilmember Blink. Number 12, Hillcore Energy Company, application number 2020-170, dated March 20, 2020. Dredge install pile clusters, re-enter the drill and drill the Lobo Peak prospect and install wellhead protector, Burrowwood Field, Councilmember Cognovich. Number 13, Hillcore Energy Company, application number 2020-173, dated March 20th, 2020. Install pile clusters, drill the Slow Train 1 prospect and install wellhead protector, 4-inch flow line and 2-inch gas lift line, West Bay Field, Councilmember Cognovich. Number 14, Hillcore Energy Company, application number 2020-250, dated April 7, 2020. Install pile clusters, drill the Slow Train 2 prospect and install wellhead protector, 4-inch flow line and 2-inch gas lift line, West Bay Field, Councilmember Cognovich.
We have a motion by Mr. Blank. I'll second it. Any questions?
Looks like the oil industry is alive and well, judging from all these drilling permits and improvement permits.
It does, doesn't it?
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Bartholomew,
Yes.
Councilmember Black,
Abstain.
Councilmember Arbro,
Yes.
Councilmember Gooey,
Yes.
Councilmember Russo,
Yes.
Councilmember Newberry,
Yes.
Councilmember LaFrance,
Yes.
Councilmember Blink,
Yes.
and Councilmember Cognovich.
Abstain.
And the permits are adopted by a vote of 7 to 2 abstentions.
Thank you. We'll move to item 4 and item 15.
Are we taking those in globo?
Yes.
7A for the Louisiana Fruit Company, application number 2020-268, dated April 20, 2020. Maintenance, dredge the west slip of Site 6, Venice Port Complex, Venice area, Councilmember Cognovich. And number 15, Eustace Engineering LLC, application number 2020-322, dated May the 7th, 2020. Perform 2 CPTs for a proposed haul road for the relocation of a ZPMC stacker reclaim at the host terminal facility, Highway 15, Dayvan area, Councilmember Bartholomew.
Offer.
We have a motion
Second.
by Mr. Bartholomew, seconded by Mr. Cognovich.
Yeah.
Any questions? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bartholomew,
Yeah.
Councilmember Black,
Yes.
Councilmember Arbro,
Yes.
Councilmember Gooey,
Yes.
Councilmember Russo,
Yes.
Councilmember Newberry,
Yes.
Councilmember LaFrance,
Yes.
Councilmember Blink,
Yes.
Councilmember Cognovich,
Yes.
and the permits are adopted by a vote of 9 to 0.
Thank you. We'll move to item 16, B and C.
B, Shady Oaks Trailer Park, Frank Daigle, conditional approval. 4 additional trailer park spaces, Shady Oaks Lane, Belle Chase, Louisiana, Councilmember Blink. Cruises RV Park, Rodney Height, conditional approval for 36 additional spaces, Logan Lane, Belle Chase, Councilmember Blink.
We have a motion by Mr. Blank,
Like to offer?
seconded
Second.
by
Second.
Mr. Roussel. Question from the table? Roll
Yeah,
call.
I have one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to defer to Mr. Blank and get his opinion. I haven't spoken to him about this, but are you in support of 36 more temporary RV trailers in your district? I'll vote whichever way you want me to do on this.
So where Cruisers RV Park is situated, it's been an existing trailer park. They have They have a fence line with their neighbors that it's comprised of a hedge. They've done a lot of work there lately on improvements. I've had no complaints from members of the community, the neighbors, anything like that so far. The other deal here for Mr. Frank Daigle, he's went to great expense to put in fire hydrants, etc., to improve his trailer park. If you go down that street, it is absolutely immaculate. It looks like we're getting that out of Cruiser's RV park too. They've spent a considerable amount of money doing improvements. They completely redressed the site. They've spent great expense putting a water line under the road, those sorts of things, and it's inside of levee protection. So they've satisfied all the needs of the permitting department. I don't know if legally we could hold them up.
All right. No, sounds good. It's in your district, and I haven't spoken to you. I just wanted to make sure you were fine. I'll be able to support it with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Newberry and Roussel have their hand raised.
Ms. Newberry?
Yes, I know Cruiser's RV Park has spent a lot of money, trying to get in compliance with all our rules and laws. So is Shady Oaks doing the same thing? Did they put their 8-inch water line?
The last time I went down that street, I was delivering face masks, and there was equipment there. They had a new fire hydrant in place. The equipment was still, they were going to extend that going a little bit further. But yes, he's doing what he needs to get in compliance, make a little bit of profit from a coming industrial boom.
Thank you.
Mr. Roussel?
Yes, I just was going to comment similar to those comments that these individuals have expended a lot of funds to put in the 8-inch water line. We still have other trailer parks who have not complied. Administration has not pursued the compliance. So I think these are trying to do the right thing, and I support it. That's why I second it.
Thank you. Any more questions from the table? From the audience, we have anything?
We had no emails come in
Okay, for the whole meeting?
for the whole meeting. We just had
Thank
that
you.
one for the port. You're welcome.
Roll call vote?
Councilmember Bartholomew,
Yes.
Councilmember Black,
Yes.
Councilmember Arbro,
Yes.
Councilmember Gooey,
Yes.
Councilmember Roussel,
Yes,
Councilmember Newberry,
Yes.
Councilmember LaFrance,
Yes.
Councilmember Blank,
Yes.
Councilmember Koknovich.
Yes.
And the permits are adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8.
Introductions of ordinances and resolutions. We have many of them. The first batch is for Councilmember Bartholomew. An ordinance to amend and amended to readopt Section 4 of Ordinance Number 142, the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance of Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as amended, and the Comprehensive Zoning District Map therein adapted by reference, and which is paragraph thereto with reference to application number 2019-419, dated November 25th, 2019. A resolution denying the requested map change filed by Stacy Rowland from RS2 to RM2 zoning districts for lots 1, 3, and 5 of the St. Clair Estate subdivision, Bruce St. Clair, Braithwaite, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, all in accordance with application number 2019-419, dated November 25th, 2019. An ordinance to amend and amended to readopt Section 4 of Ordinance Number 142, the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance of Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as amended, and the Comprehensive Zoning District Map therein adapted by reference, and which is paragraph thereto, with reference to application number 2019-420, dated November 25th, 2019. A resolution denying the requested map change filed by Stacy Rowland from RS2 to RM2 zoning district for lots 4 of the St. Clair Estate subdivision, Bruce St. Clair, Braithwaite, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, all in accordance with application number 2019-420, dated November 25th, 2019. An ordinance to amend and amended to readopt Section 4 of Ordinance Number 142, the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance of Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as amended, and the Comprehensive Zoning District Map therein adopted by reference, and which is paragraph thereto, with reference to application number 2019-421 dated November 25th, 2019. A resolution denying the requested map change filed by Stacy Rowland from RS2 zoning district to RM2 zoning district for lots 7, 9, 11, and 13 of the St. Clair Estate subdivision, Rue St. Clair, Braithwaite, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, all in accordance with application number 2019-421 dated November 25th, 2019. An ordinance to amend and amended to readopt section 4 of ordinance number 142, the comprehensive zoning ordinance of Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as amended in the comprehensive zoning district map therein adopted by reference, and which is paired thereto with reference to application number 2019-422 dated November 25th, 2019. A resolution denying the requested map change filed by Stacy Rowland from RS2 zoning district to RM2 zoning district for lots 10, 12, and 14 of the St. Clair Estate subdivision, Rue St. Clair, Braithwaite, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, all in accordance with application number 2019-422 dated November 25th, 2019. In ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan, waterline replacement, Highway 39 project, and otherwise provide with respect thereto. In ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan for the U.S. Coast Guard inspection, marine vessel Point Lahash project, and otherwise provide with respect thereto. The next introduction is for Councilmember Black. An ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan renovations government complex building 200 project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The next two are for Councilmember Gui. An ordinance authorizing the parish president or his designee to do all things necessary and proper to effectuate a lease between Plaquemines Parish Government and Equiland Inc. attached hereto as Exhibit 1, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance authorizing the parish president or his designee to do all things necessary and proper to effectuate a lease between Plaquemines Parish Government and First Equity Inc. and Equiland Inc. attached hereto as Exhibit 1, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The next group of introductions for Councilmember LaFrance. A resolution approving and authorizing Thomas J. Surpass, Finance Manager, to execute a Louisiana compliance questionnaire to Calder, Slavin and Company, LLC, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance authorizing the acceptance of a donation for the Homeland Security Emergency Preparedness Department and to amend the General Fund 2020 Operating Revenue and Expenditures Budget, Homeland Security Emergency Preparedness Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to accept the bid or the portion bid of Hillcore Energy 1 LP for mineral lease purposes on Parish Tract 20-2 covering parish-owned property located in N1/2 of the NW 1/4 of Section 1 in TS 21S R26E Bureau's Levy District, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, estimated to contain approximately 34 acres out of a total of 400 acres, more or less, and otherwise provide with respect thereto. A resolution to reject the portion bid of Hillcore Energy 1 LP for mineral lease purposes of Parish Tract number 20-2 covering parish-owned property located in N1/2 of the NW 1/4 of Section 1 in town T21S R26E Bureau's Levy District, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, estimated to contain approximately 34 acres out of a total of 400 acres, more or less, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. A resolution authorizing the parish president on behalf of the Plaquemines Parish government to name and accept the proposal of the Plaquemines Gazette as the official journal of the Plaquemines Parish Council and other political subdivisions and districts situated therein, of which the Plaquemines Parish Council is the governing authority. An ordinance by the Plaquemines Parish Council as and on behalf of the West Bank Levy District to acquire a new perpetual flood protection levy flood wall easement in certain portions of lands in Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana by donation, purchase, appropriation, and/or expropriation to construct the New Orleans to Venice NOV-NF-W-05A.1 Lower Seat to Myrtle Grove, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, for levee, flood wall, drainage, flood access, and hurricane protection purposes, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance pursuant to Article 3, Plaquemines Parish Boat Harbors, Section 6-41, to set fees for lifting, blocking, storage, and stationary lifts at the Empire Venice and Point Lahash shipyards, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend Chapter 14, Article 3, Section 14-80 of the Plaquemines Parish Code of Ordinances to provide for the sales taxes retained by a dealer and otherwise to file with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend Chapter 14, Article 3, Section 14-61 of the Plaquemines Parish Code of Ordinances to provide for collection of a portion of the sales tax on certain transactions and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The next introductions for Councilmember Blink. An ordinance approving a plan of re-subdivision of lots S1, S3, and S6, Blaine Sutton Division, Empire, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, into lots S1A, Blaine Subdivision, Blaine Sutton Division, Empire, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, is shown on the plans and plat of survey by Dufresne Surveying and Engineering, Inc., dated March 17, 2020, revised April 23, 2020. The owner having fulfilled all of the requirements of the subdivision and re-subdivision ordinance of the Parish of Plaquemines without cost of the Plaquemines Parish government or the Parish of Plaquemines and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend and as amended re-adopt Plaquemines Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 22, Water, Sewer, and Refuse, Section 22-8, Usage Rates, Subsection 3, to rescind and all set aside ordinance number 07-15 and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to rescind, annul, and set aside ordinance number 403 adopted December 8, 1982, rescind, annul, and set aside Section 6 and Section 7 of ordinance number 40 adopted April 9, 1964. Establish Article 9 to be titled Mosquito Control of Chapter 13 of the Parish Code of Ordinances. Establish a user fee for mosquito control in order to continue to abate, control, eradicate, and study mosquitoes and other arthropods of public health importance in all activities incidental thereto and otherwise provide with respect thereto. And the last introductions for Councilmember Kognovich. An ordinance for Plaquemines Parish government's grant on behalf of the Buras Levy District of temporary culvert and pipeline easement of CPRA for the Spanish Pass Marsh Creation Project BA-0203 and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And the last introduction, an ordinance for Plaquemines Parish government's grant on behalf of the Buras Levy District of temporary easement to CPRA for the Spanish Pass Marsh Creation Project BA-0203 and otherwise provide with respect thereto. Mr. Chairman, that is all the introductions that we have.
Thank you, Ms. Barb. We'll move to approval of the agenda. We'll move to 9A1 would be deferred. 9AB.
That item has been withdrawn at the request of Director Taylor.
Item 9G, deferred.
9C.
9G, as in goat.
Okay.
That's it. Anyone have any other deferral? We'll move to the next item, please.
9C, an ordinance to amend the 2020 General Fund Operating Expenditure Budget, Recreation Department, Day Vance Summer Recreation Program Division, and otherwise to file with respect thereto.
I'll offer.
We have a motion by Ms. Newberry.
I'll offer to move with this.
I have a motion by Ms. Newberry. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Councilmember Arbro.
We'll have a second by Mr. Albro. Ms. Newberry.
Yes, this ordinance has been deferred and evidently it's to take money from the Day Vance Center. It's not something hold on, I'm sorry. This is money taken back from the $25,000 we put in the budget for the Day Vance Center. If you go back and look at the audit for report number 2019-17, it showed that the Point Lahash Fire Department had, volunteer fire department had a surplus of almost $40,000 towards the end of last year. And the reason for this resending this ordinance is because we are in a budget crisis. They could probably actually still function with what they have in their bank account. So I'm asking my members to support this bill because this is something that we definitely could use in our budget. So I hope y'all had the opportunity to look in the audit and look at that audit really close. And if anybody has any comments about it. I ask y'all.
I have,
There any questions from the table?
yeah,
Mr. Bartholomew?
yes. I don't, first of all, it's the idea this year was having two programs, one on the northern end and one in Days End, because we couldn't get the kids down from the Bracelet area to come down this way, the Days End area. But besides all of that, I don't think they have a recreational program at all anyway, no matter where, unless the president of the parish says that we're going to full force. And there's no problem leaving that money there, that $25,000, if we do have it. And if we don't have it, we can always pick it up. Now, the other thing we need to be concerned about as well is the other agencies that we gave money to that they're not using it, and we can put the money on hold as with that as well. So I think we, Mr. Berry, might need to want to, I suggest you defer that and look at make it a global thing and get everything in place. That when it comes time to that, if we're not going to have recreation during the summer and the money we appropriate, we can get it back and put it into the budget. Now, $25,000 now, they ain't going to make this budget cure. That's number one. It's not going to help that. Now, the idea, though, I am concerned about us not having nothing and then put the money into the operation with all the money we put out in grants that haven't been utilized. And so if we do that, I think we'd be all right. Nobody should have any objection. I know I don't. But I think if you're doing it this way, it has a negative connotation to me. And I feel it's a bias type setting. That's just my opinion, of course, nothing personal, but that's the way I see it. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, has anybody else done research on other ordinances to see if they've used that? Does administration have an answer? Has anybody else used the money that we've given to them for other recreation, like the Y, anything like that? I mean, that money does make a difference. I mean, we're over $7 million in a hole. So I think this is just a beginning on what we're going to start rescinding and how we're going to fix this budget, this hole. So, I mean, recreation may not be an option this summer, and those are things that we have to look at, but we got to start somewhere. And I mean, if everybody did their homework, looked at the audit, there's a surplus in their budget. So, I mean, it's up to if y'all want to defer it or if y'all want to end it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Bartholomew.
So I was aware of the fact that we had a shortfall. We had always petitioned 50,000 because of the shortfall. We cut it in half. In operation, half of 25. Without no reservation whatsoever. I told the people on at the farm, I said, look, we got money left. We can do this and do that. When Platinum Pass in the crises, and I said, let's just go on and ask for 25 to stay in 50. Now, we're the only one that did that. Out of all the groups that get X amount of dollars, serious money, 150, 200,000, that kind of money, compared to 50. And I just can't see that. Matter of fact, just to kill that and be done. Then if the president not gonna have recreation, keep the money where it is. Don't give it to us yet. Just keep it there. Just keep it up there in Belchase right now. Just keep it until we get the CEA together. And if we have a program, then we'll come and ask for it. I'll get them to ask for it. Other than that, it stays in the operational budget with Platinum Parish government. So
Just
that
to
it
let you-
stays there. What?
I was just letting y'all know, I thought Councilmember Bartholomew was done. We have council members Black and Gooey and Blink who are in the queue when you're ready.
Okay. Who's the next one?
Councilmember Black.
Mr. Black.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Newberry, I commend you for this resolution, this ordinance, but I think it's a twofold thing. Yeah, it's going to save money back and put money back into the general fund because we're in a crisis. However, this was a recommendation by the internal auditor. So this was not just I want to put money back in the general fund type of issue. This was something that the internal auditor had as a finding.
That is correct.
And said that the money should be returned that was unused to the parish government because it could potentially be an unlawful contribution. So, you know, I have no idea why would anybody want to defer this. I think we should move on it to be in accordance with the law. And to Mr. Bartholomew's comments, you know, I respect his opinion on having a different program on the East Bank. However, we all talk about unity in this parish, but yet we want to have a separate recreation department for a separate section of the parish. I think, you know, and I've had my reservations with Director Henry, but I think Director Henry's doing a well enough job. He's doing a good job. I think Director Eppley is providing some oversight. Why doesn't the parish recreation department be like it always has been and operate this parish? Why do we have to have a separate recreation department? And that's it. I mean, the bottom line is I'm voting for this because this is the recommendation by the internal auditor to alleviate us from breaking the law. And I'm all for not breaking the law. That's all I have.
Question,
Councilmember Blank.
comment? After whoever's next, I have a comment after that.
Sure. I just wanted to point out that there was one other grant recipient agency that did cut their budget by more than half, and that was the LSU Ag Center, which does 4-H. They went from 47 down to 20-something thousand. But I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Mr. Bartholomew.
Yeah, appreciate that. I didn't know that. Answering Mr. Black's question, the auditor did the audit, said that it would take about $25,000 to do the day event recreational program fee based on the previous expenditures. No problem. The problem is that we have the one in the Bracelet area, which added another recreational program on the East Bank, because kids didn't have the access to come down this way. Now, I don't know what you're talking about that's breaking the law of all this, anything else that he's talking about. Now, all expenditure was accounted for. Nothing was misappropriated. The only thing I think wasn't done is procedures wasn't followed. Not wasn't followed. There was no procedure to follow in the CEA. So then, if we needed procedures, then we should have done the CEA last year, and we could have had it done the way they wanted it to be done. So, but they was running it based on how they know how to do it. It wasn't no problem when anything was missing. All the money was accounted for. It was the procedure part of it that the auditor was saying that's in violation. So if you don't have a CEA to explain to you how to operate, how can you be in violation? How could you have a negative audit? Now, once you got an audit, CEA in place, and you're in violation, then you're in trouble. You're in violation. You are breaking the law. And that comment he said is that those people were breaking the law. They was not breaking the law. Now just going on there, and I'll actually everybody vote no on this. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any comments from the table?
Yeah, my hand's up.
Mr. Roussel?
Yes. I think we need some clarity on this issue. There's been a lot of discussion and a lot of it is incorrect. What this this ordinance does, it takes out the $25,000 that is in the 2020 current year budget. It has nothing to do with any audit in the past or any recommendation from any auditor in the past. This is for 2020. Now, if you want to talk about the audit in the past that references going back and taking the money from the fire department, that was for the previous years, 2019 and before. And that was when Mr. Lapine issued a check to the fire department without a cooperative endeavor agreement. Now, Mr. Buras has assured us that he is not going to make that mistake again in 2020. So this $25,000 would not be issued without the administration doing a CEA and agreeing to it, which I don't know what Mr. Lepine's intention is or not. So we can't confuse this with the internal auditor's recommendations of the past. And I don't know if the legal department has followed the recommendations of the internal audit department of seeking to refund the money that Mr. Lepine has issued. That's up to them in the legal department to answer that. So this is totally different than what we're talking about. And I don't see personally that this money gets issued this year, because I doubt that the administration does a CEA with the fire department to issue it anyway. So we can't confuse the issue and mislead the public about what this is about. This is about the 2020 grant that's in the 2020 budget that has not been issued, does not have a CEA, and there's no bearance of past audits because it hasn't been audited yet. And I'll leave it at that for clarification. Answer any questions if you have any.
If there are no questions, there are 3 people in the queue. Councilmember Gui is the first.
Dr. Gui?
Please unmute yourself.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Some of the comments that were made by Mr. Bartholomew in regards to other departments or other programs that may fall into the same frame of reference, I think he has a valid point that we're picking on AVANT when there may be other departments that have money that they won't use. And not that I disagree removing money, because I think it's needed. But if there are other departments, I think we should be fair and equitable across the board, at least give the appearance of that. So if the administration would make us a list of other programs that fall into the same realm, I mean, I would appreciate it, and we can move accordingly. That's all I have.
Councilmember Black is next in the line.
Mr. Black?
Yes, thank you. So I pulled up the audit from the internal auditor, and yes, Mr. Russo is correct in that the auditor makes a recommendations that the public funds left over for each year should either be paid back to the parish or used to reduce the amount of public funding. He gave an example as the 2017 public funding of $50,000, less the $25,000 expenditures equals $25,000 reimbursed to the parish or used to reduce the amount of public funding in 2018. So the question is that if we know that that was improperly done in 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019, and that money still has been not, those rollover funds have still not been repaid to the parish because, yes, there was no CEA, and that goes through a couple of different administrations, then why are we going to still continue to be on the same course of action for 2020? I mean, we know because of the internal auditor's report that the mechanism in which those funds were distributed was done incorrectly, and that the way the expenditures were made were done incorrectly. Then why would we continue to do it again in 2020? And to further have a discussion about the internal auditor's recommendations, he says that the money should be paid back to the parish that was rollover. Has any of those funds that were rollover funds have on this particular audit that needs to be paid back to the parish government? I would say no, 0 has been paid back to the parish government. So therefore, Mr. Newberry's request in his ordinance to pay back the $25,000, whether it's from 2020 or 2019 or 2018 or 2017, I think is appropriate, because here's an opportunity to correct a wrong. And I'm not sure where the CEA is, or Mr. Buras or Mr. Lepine has executed a new CEA with the fire department, but that's not the point. The point is that the internal auditor said those monies need to be paid back, and here's an opportunity and a mechanism per Ms. Newberry's ordinance to do so. So I do think it's germane to the conversation. That's all.
Councilmember Newberry, you no longer wish to speak?
I'll speak. Mr. Black hit it head on, and I definitely understand where Mr. Russo was coming from. And the auditor did make a statement. Anything over 25,000 should have been put back. It's what they've been spending in the past 4 years, and they've just took the money and spent it elsewhere, which I did not believe that it should have spent it on. So I made up the ordinance. I think we need to rescind this, and I'll call the question.
Question has been called for. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Bartholomew,
No.
Councilmember Black,
Yes.
Councilmember Arbro,
Yes.
Councilmember Gooey,
Yes.
Councilmember Russo,
No.
Councilmember Newberry,
Yes.
Councilmember LaFrance,
No.
Councilmember Blink. Councilmember Blink must have left the room. Councilmember Kognovich.
No.
And the ordinance fails with 4 yes votes, 4 no votes, and 1 absence.
Item D will be deferred by Mr. Black.
E, an ordinance to amend the 2020 operating expenditure budget.
Ms. Mark,
waterworks,
we'd
and
like to defer F.
We're on E.
Oh, I apologize. You said F or E? Yeah. F. Oh, I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off. We would like to defer F, though.
E, an ordinance to amend the 2020 operating expenditure budget, waterworks and sewage fund, waterworks and sewage operations department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer for discussion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Konovich. I'll yield the floor to the administration.
Mr. Chairman, all we're doing is moving money in the waterworks budget from one line item to another. We're moving it from a maintenance line item to a capital line item, not coming up with any funds from anywhere else.
Is there any questions from the table?
Yes, Councilmember Russo has raised his hand.
Mr. Russo.
Yes, Mr. Epley, I can read the ordinance and I understand what you're doing, but you can tell us why you don't need the money in maintenance on property and equipment?
Yeah, so we needed to buy lawnmowers to mow grass around water plants, sewer plants, water towers. To buy the mowers, the money needs to be in capital. We needed to move the money from maintenance to capital in order to do it.
And so, is this coming out of the contract with Inframark?
No, sir.
This is coming out of our sewer and water fund beyond the contract?
Coming out of the operations budget.
All right, well, I know we had talked about you talking to Inframark about the contract and making some progress there to save some money. And that's why I was questioning this move. Maintenance of property and equipment.
Yes, sir. I have started the conversation with Inframark about the contract.
And so do we have any more money in maintenance and property and equipment that might be excess?
Not very much.
Is there any more questions from the table?
I see no hands raised. No, I see no hands raised.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bartholomew,
Abstain.
Councilmember Black,
Yes.
Councilmember Arbro,
Yes.
Councilmember Gooey,
Yes.
Councilmember Russo,
Yes.
Councilmember Newberry,
Yes.
Councilmember LaFrance,
Yes.
Councilmember Blink, he still appears to be, Councilmember Kognovich,
Yes.
And the ordinance passes by a vote of 7 to 1 abstention.
Item F will be deferred. Item G is deferred.
9H. A resolution expressing the Plaquemines Parish Council's support of the United States Coast Guard and commending the U.S. Coast Guard and its contractor Cuvion Group for their successful efforts to safely capture oil from the Taylor wells and to support the U.S. Coast Guard and Bessie in their resolve to ensure a final plug and abandon resolution in this disaster and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
We have a motion by Mr. Roussel, and I'll second it. Mr. Roussel.
Yes, I think this is an important piece of legislation to be able to carry the story on, and thank Mr. Cuvion and his group for the successful efforts that they have done with this oil leak out in the Gulf on Taylor wells. I think that it's about time that somebody really put the pressure on to get this oil leak stopped. I can't believe that it's still going on after all of these years. And I thank the Cuvion Group for coming up with an innovative way of capturing the oil. And I hope this doesn't put him out of capturing all of that oil business and costing him money, but it does have to move forward, and we have to make a statement to be able to try to get that capped.
Thank you, Mr. Roussel. Is there any question or comments from the table?
There are no hands raised. Oh,
Who do we have?
Councilmember Blank.
Mr. Blank.
I'd like to second some of the things that Benny said about the Cuvion Group, their ingenuity in getting the this glorified umbrella, so to speak, attached to the well, and get that oil sort of temporarily contained. The thing is, the wells aren't shut in, and there needs to be a complete closure, a complete P&A job that needs to happen at that site. Furthermore, there's no doubt in my mind that the oil from that site has washed ashore in Plaquemines Parish. If there's any injury to the marshes in the Birdfoot Delta, then I think that the injuries need to be addressed closest to the impact. And I would implore the administration to look into any sort of notifying the natural resource team's assessment that goes along with oil spills to see if there is any money to repair wetlands in Plaquemines Parish due to this oil leak. Yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blank. Any more comments from the table?
There are no hands raised.
I call for the question. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bartholomew.
Yes.
Councilmember Black.
Yes.
Councilmember Arbro.
Yes.
Councilmember Gooey.
Yes.
Councilmember Roussel.
Yes.
Councilmember Newberry.
Yes.
Councilmember LaFrance.
Yes.
Councilmember Blank.
Yes.
And Councilmember Cognovich. I believe he may have stepped away. So the resolution passes by a vote of 8-0.
Thank you all.
9I, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan, Civic Drive Fishing Pier Project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I so offered. Ask for a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Bartholomew. This is for the building of the fishing pier behind Pool Cell for Old Hospital. Any questions from the table?
That's grant money, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's grant money, right?
Right.
Yep.
Any questions from the table?
Yeah, I have one, Mr. LaFrance.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, is this the same grant money that's being utilized for the fishing pier and boat launch for Pimcoe Canal? Maybe Mr. Russo has that answer. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what's the status of that one as well.
No, it's not the same money. It's a different pot of money.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
With that, Question has been called for. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bartholomew,
Yes.
Councilmember Black,
Yes.
Councilmember Arbro,
Yes.
Councilmember Gooey,
Yeah.
Councilmember Roussel,
Yes.
Councilmember Newberry,
Yes.
Councilmember LaFrance,
Yes.
Councilmember Blink, Councilmember Blink,
Yes.
Councilmember Kognovich,
Yes.
and the ordinance is adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you.
9J, a resolution giving preliminary approval to the issuance of not to exceed $100 million aggregate principal amount of refunding bonds of the Parish of Plaquemine, State of Louisiana, for the purpose of refinancing outstanding debt of the issuer, providing certain terms of said bonds, making application to the State Bond Commission for approval of said bonds, and providing for other matters in connection therewith.
I'll offer just for discussion. Ask for a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Konovich. Yield to administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Jason Akers, attorney's on the line. He can answer the questions. Ms. Toots, would you see if he's on the line?
Yes, he is. And he's unmuted.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, council members. Jason Akers with Foley and Udell. If you recall, late last year, we did a refunding of some Series 2009 and 2010 bonds that the parish had outstanding. Those were done to save debt service over the amount that was otherwise to be owed. It's the same concept here. We're talking about taking old debt out and putting new debt in its place at a lower interest rate. You're going to save money as a result. It's the same concept of refinancing your home loan. You take old debt, the old mortgage out that's at a higher interest rate. You save money by doing new debt at a lower interest rate. In this case, these were 2012 bonds issued for the courthouse and for flood protection projects. They were issued through the LCDA. They currently bear interest at rates up to 5%. Based on the market as we saw it in early March, prior to the pandemic pretty much shutting down the municipal marketplace, these could be done at interest rates yields between 1.2 and 2.75%. Overall savings hopefully would be between $300,000 and $400,000 each year. It's a net of roughly 8% NPV savings, net present value savings over the amount that would otherwise be owed. State Bond Commission target for refunding of this type is to have a 3% net present value savings. So we have exceeded that by 5%. That's of course based on market conditions back in March. We're not sure what the market's going to look like by the time we are able to get into it, but it does make sense to actually begin the process of approval. And that's what this resolution does. It begins the process. It allows us to make the application to the State Bond Commission. It allows us to begin the process of exploring the sale, but it has to come back to this council 2 different times. It has to come back for a parameter resolution to actually authorize us to get into the market, and then it has to come back for a confirming resolution to actually confirm the sale once it's actually taken place. I want to note that the $100 million principal amount, maximum principal amount, is just a maximum principal amount. In section 1 of the resolution, it very clearly states these bonds can only be issued for the purpose of refunding the outstanding 2012 bonds. There's no opportunity for us to get approval from you, from the State Bond Commission, or from anyone else to do anything else with additional funding. It can only be used to refund the outstanding bonds. And with that said, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the table?
Yes, Councilmember Roussel has his hand raised.
Mr. Roussel.
Yes, you answered the question about the 100 million because the outstanding is 72 million. Why didn't we put 75 million or something like that in here?
Well, it's a good question. What we're always guarding against is any unknowns that are out there. For example, the opportunity to sell bonds at what we would call a discount. So if someone is willing to take a different interest rate, but pay a little bit less, but it's going to save you more on the long run, we want to save that possibility. Right now, the numbers that have been prepared by Raymond James indicate that that's the total principal amount is going to be really closer to 68 million. And that's where, that's where we want to be, is only enough that's necessary for the refunding. If the $100 million causes you concern, I am perfectly content. If you want to lower it, I would ask that it not go lower than 80 million, just to provide us that flexibility that we'd need. It's really just an estimate to give us the utmost flexibility, knowing that the real restrictions are contained within the resolution itself, and that it can only be used to refund the outstanding 2012 bonds.
And so you say it has to come back to the council. However, the fees that you charge do not have to come back to the council, correct?
Well, our fees are only upon success and actual closing of a transaction. So
that's not the question. The question is on page 3, line 91. It specifically states that the parish president is hereby empowered and directed to provide for payment without further approval of this governing authority.
yes, sir. That is standard language in the Attorney General's required approval for our firm as your bond counsel. We're a special outside counsel in doing so. If you'd like us to come back to you for a not to exceed approval of cost of issuance at the next resolution, we're happy to do that.
Well, I'd like to have some more discussion on this in person, mainly because of the fact that, we added 72 million, then you told us that it could be as low as 68 million. I want to make sure that when we refinance this, it's definitely at a lower rate, but it's not to exceed the term that's left on the bonds now.
Well, I'll note, council member, that in section 1, there is a maturity limitation of November 1, 2042, which matches the limitation or the actual final maturity of the existing 2012 bonds. So it cannot exceed the limitation or the final maturity of the existing bonds.
And that's the current maturity date of the existing bonds is 2042?
Yes, so there are actually 2 series of bonds outstanding from 2012. One has a final maturity of September 1, 2042, and the other is the November 1, 2042 date.
Okay. All right, and you mentioned in here that our current rate is around 5%?
The rates owed on the current bonds, yes, sir. They go from the mid 3s up to 5%, and then on both series actually. And so we're hoping to get those yields down below 3%.
Right, and here it says that refunding bonds shall bear interest rate at rates not to exceed 6%.
Yes, sir. Again, we're providing for flexibility for what the market requires, knowing that we cannot do the refunding without meeting the State Bond Commission required net PV savings, which is a 3% net savings after payment of all costs of issuance. And knowing that that is on a per maturity basis, not an overall net rate. So there may be an opportunity as the underwriters get into the market to sell a maturity for a little bit higher interest rate than it currently is bearing, but because of the amount that they're going to get for selling it at that higher rate, there's less money that needs to be borrowed. It's called a premium bond, and it's actually very common in the marketplace. It may not be necessary, but we want to provide the utmost flexibility when the time comes to get into the market to achieve the greatest amount of savings that be available for the parish.
All right, so how many more votes on this before it's final?
There will be 2 other resolutions, one that we call a parameter sale resolution, and that would set many of the terms except for the actual pricing terms. It will, however, provide that the pricing terms can't be agreed upon unless there is that minimum NPV savings realized by the parish.
And
And
has
then
the
after that, there'd be a confirming resolution, so 2 more.
And has the administration made an effort to negotiate your fees?
Our fees,
Yes.
we have not had those discussions, no.
So I asked the administration, I understand we got a cap by the Attorney General, but in the past, we've negotiated fees and we saved a little more money. Did I hear a pin drop?
Well,
We will negotiate with Mr. Akers. We'll sit down and have a discussion.
Well, that's a good starting point.
Is there any more questions from the table?
Yes, Councilmember Black has his hand raised.
Mr. Black?
Thank you, Mr. I agree with Mr. Russo. I have some concerns about some of the language in this particular resolution, and I understand there's a couple more votes to go through before it's finalized. The first is the $100 million max. You know, I think you said you were comfortable with $80 million. I'd have to, you know, it's at $72 million now. I'd feel a lot more comfortable and probably could only support this if we had an $80 million max. I don't see the need. You know, you use the analogy of refinancing your home. And I've been in that situation, and, you know, you get a little bit tempted sometimes when there's extra equity there or some extra funds to get your hands on, and you take that at a low interest rate. However, I don't think we're in a position to take any extra funds on, even though the interest rate's low. So I would be more comfortable with reducing that $100 million max to your suggestion of $80 million. The second part is the questions that were discussed about the maturity date. I'm comfortable with the maturity date being 2042 on the existing bonds, and then the refi as well. I do have somewhat of an issue of not to exceed 6%. I understand your rationale, but I would feel a little more comfortable with having that as a max of 5%. And I understand that the state kind of regulates that, but I think in the written language, not to exceed 5% would probably be more appropriate, because it would be in line with the existing rate that we're at. The final thing is I would encourage the administration to negotiate, as they have negotiated before, and this council has asked the administration and actually changed companies because they did not negotiate or because negotiations weren't to their liking. So I would ask the administration to negotiate, as Mr. Russo so suggested, before I could actually move forward on this. That's all I have.
Councilmember Gui has his hand raised also, just to let you know.
Dr. Gui?
So I agree with you, Bo. Are you going to make those amendments?
No, I think it needs to be deferred. The administration needs to make it, unless Foley Udell wants to make them now. And I mean, the chairman has offered it, so I would leave it up to the chairman if he agreed to make the amendments, or otherwise it could be deferred. Either way, you know, that's where I'm at.
Yeah,
Mr.
well,
Chairman.
I offered it for the discussion, so we can discuss it. And really, I'm planning on deferring it. So we can, hopefully the next meeting will be done in person, because I prefer dealing with something like this in person.
Yeah. So with that, Mr. Gui,
I'm good.
Those amendments are presented to the chairman if he wants to go ahead and amend.
I'm done.
And then vote on later. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, if you can hear me, sir, I think with those amendments, we still have a very marketable transaction, and I think they would be appropriate if you prefer.
Well, we'll make them between now and the next meeting.
So with that, I will defer this item.
9K, a resolution giving preliminary approval to the issuance of not exceeding $7,500,000 of revenue notes in one or more series of the Parish of Plaquemine, State of Louisiana, making application to the State Bond Commission for approval of and providing for the sale and certain terms of said revenue notes, and providing for other matters in connection therewith.
I'll offer for discussion.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Konovich. I yield to the administration.
Councilmember LaFrance, we have Councilmember Roussel with his hand raised.
Okay, Mr. Roussel?
This actually puts us in $7.5 million of more debt based on revenue notes. This is not the next item for anticipation notes. This is actually more debt. And naturally, I could not support this at this time.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I apologize. Might have had a little technical difficulty there. I don't know if it's appropriate for me. This is Jason Akers again. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to address the resolution at this time or if you'd like to take questions.
It's up to the table. Any questions from the table?
I have one, Mr. Chairman, but I'd like to hear from Mr. Akers first, actually.
Okay, Mr. Akers.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Jason Akers with Foley and Udell. This resolution is designed to accomplish what the State Bond Commission has permitted for political subdivisions such as the parish who are facing revenue losses from either COVID-19, pandemic disruptions in the economy, or from the disruptions caused by the oil and gas price decline. The State Bond Commission realized that typically in Louisiana, revenue anticipation notes are intended to bridge a gap between the time that revenue is needed within a budget and accruing to the budget, usually towards the end of a fiscal year. In this case, because of the pandemic and because of the oil and gas price decline, there's a lot of revenue that was budgeted by the parish that is never going to actually materialize. And there's a schedule that we've worked through with the administration that indicates that number is $7.5 million. And we'll be honest, that is a wild guess at this point of the $7.5 million, but it's based on information that's available. The legislative auditor in Louisiana provided a report just within the last week that indicated that they expect sales tax collections within local governments over the next 2 years to decrease some $550 million, if not more. And that's just sales tax collection decreases related to COVID-19. It doesn't actually address the oil price issue as well. So this resolution makes the application to the State Bond Commission for authorization to issue revenue notes to actually bridge that revenue loss and pay for it over an extended period of time. A number of our other clients are undertaking this as well because as of right now, there is no federal relief available to parishes. There's no state relief that's available to parishes to pay for this lost revenue. Some relief that's available to pay for increased expenses, but the parish actually has very little in increased expenses. Most of the problem is the lost revenue. So this is an opportunity to bridge that gap and without a significant impact, negative impact on the budget. So I'll leave that and happy to answer any questions that you have.
Mr. Black?
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. You mentioned a couple things, and I first want to start off by saying that you had said 7.5 million was a wild guess. We received a presentation from Mr. Tommy Serpaz last Thursday in which he outlined that exact number, 7.5 million, and I don't really think it was a wild guess. I think he actually used a pretty good formula to come up with that particular number that we would be in a shortfall. My personal belief is that it was a pretty conservative number. As Mr. Roussel stated earlier on in a presidential report, is that we may be receiving some funds from the federal government from Senator Kennedy's bill. If that bill actually passes, However, I don't think that's going to generate us more than $2 to $3 million. So we'll still be under that way outside of that $7.5 million range. You've said that this is a particular revenue anticipation note, and that you didn't mention any deferral of payments or forgiveness of payments. It just happens to be a loan. In layman's terms, is what it is. It doesn't, the state bond commission doesn't allow for local governments to be forgiven of that particular loan, nor does it lay out any particular deferral of payments over a longer term than normal. You also talked about that the sales tax revenue is down. However, we were told, and I do believe, that the sales tax is not highly affected here in Plaquemines. It's more of oil and gas revenue loss, which is not covered by the COVID-19 Act or the CARE Act. So we're in a situation where that if we were to take out the $7.5 million revenue anticipation note on this loan, like I said in layman's terms, that there is no forgiveness, that there is no potential to recover those funds that we utilize because they're not covered by CARE and they're COVID, and they're not covered potentially by Senator Kennedy's bill. So I agree with the discussion that we've had, particularly what Mr. Russo said about not wanting to take out extra loans. I equate this to taking out a credit card to pay your house note, to pay your light bill. The last time I took out a credit card, I kind of, against my better judgment, I wound up getting a divorce. So I'm not going to venture into that with this parish. I don't think that this is appropriate. I think we need to do a little bit better as fiscally possible as we can. So therefore, I cannot support this under these circumstances at all, unless you can alleviate some of my concerns. That's all.
Well, if I may just begin, my use of the phrase "wild guess" may have been a little bit inappropriate, but what they are projections. And I have a good mentor who once told me that the only thing that I can guarantee you about projections is that they're going to be wrong. It's just a matter of how wrong that they are, because there's no way that we can actually see into the future. So I trust that Mr. Surpass actually used a very reasonable model for determining what those projections and that projected revenue loss would be. It's just the fact that we have no idea what it will ultimately be. So what do we do to mitigate that risk of maybe overshooting the amount that's absolutely necessary when the time comes? Well, the first thing we do, like we did with the revenue anticipation note you did last year, is that we do it on a drawdown basis, so that it's only drawn down to the extent that it's necessary to make payments for budgeted expenses within the parish's operating budget. And only at that time do you begin incurring interest on the amount that you draw. The other thing that I'll note is that this is not, again, a revenue anticipation note in the sense that the revenue will eventually show up. This is a bridge for revenue that's never going to appear. So the difference in taking out a credit card to pay your mortgage is that you went through a pretty exhaustive budgetary process. And in that budgetary process, you looked at all your revenues that were anticipated to come in for the year, all the expenses that were necessary. And I know that you're operating on a shoestring budget now in the parish, as it pretty much is. What you didn't anticipate in that budget was that scarcely 3 months into it, you would lose $7.5 million of your anticipated revenue. And so you only really have two particular solutions at this point. One is to cut $7.5 million from the operating side of the budget, or to make up $7.5 million in revenue on the revenue side of the budget. And this is an opportunity to make up a portion of that $7.5 million. I am as hopeful as you are, Councilmember Black, that we are going to see relief from the federal government, because a number of my clients throughout the state of Louisiana desperately need that relief. But there is still a process to go through to get you to a point as a parish where you can bridge that gap in the anticipated revenues and the now actual revenue. And this just begins this process. Just like the last resolution, this will have to come back to you for final approval. And that is, that's the point of getting the process started now. We can make the application to the State Bond Commission next week. It would actually go before them in July, and it would be August probably before funds are available, and that would be after this council gives its final approval to it another time. So I hope that addressed some of your concerns there.
We have 3 council members with their hands up. The first one is Dr. Gouy.
Dr. Gouy.
I will unmute myself.
Yes, you are unmuted.
You are.
A couple of thoughts. First of all, do we have, and I heard your timeline and I understand your timeline, that August will be probably an approval date, but is there a drop dead timeline to where if we wait any longer, we would not receive the funding we would need? And let me continue. Secondly, we, and this is all due respect to everyone in government, we have not taken a strong approach to reducing our expenses. And I think that those opportunities to do that are forthcoming. And if they are successful, then we are reducing the $7.5 million need. And in line with that, we also have the potential of federal relief if they print more money, that we would receive some money to help reduce that $7.5 million. So my question is, have we discussed or talked about a drop dead time, looking at those two opportunities? One, that we take the fortitude on our own behalf to reduce expenses, and secondly, that we have an increase in revenues from the federal government. And if those things do happen, then of course that would lower the need for the $7.5 million. So I know that's a lot of information, but we're asking to do this today in order to have some relief in August. What if we waited until July or August to take this action? Are we cutting our nose in spite of our face, or would it be fiscally prudent and beneficial to hold off? Because I just have a problem borrowing money when we're not sure if we're going to really need it or how much we're going to need. So I'll yield to that, and if we can get some answers, I think everyone on the council would benefit.
Yes, sir. There's no drop dead date legally for funding. I would leave that question to Tommy and the administration to discuss.
Hey, Dr. Gouy, this is Tommy. I did a cash flow analysis, and our cash flow analysis with the loss of revenue that we're anticipating, we're going to run out of cash in our general pool account roughly in August, end of August, beginning of September. That's what we won't be able to pay any bills, no payroll, nothing. Even with this, I mean, I think this is kind of late now to do this. That's my concern, that when we run out of cash, I'm not going to have any cash to make the payroll. Now, we do have funds in the bond indebtedness. I mean, I could come back and ask y'all for that, but that means we'll use all our cash, every bit of money we have. That's my concern with this. I don't want to go into debt any more than you guys do, but I don't see any way that we can get out of this. We still have to make payments one way or the other. We did receive FEMA funds, roughly $6 million. I would be asking you we're asking you to defer the next one, which is $8 million, because we did receive FEMA funds. So we're only asking you for the $7.5 million now, but I don't see any other way out of this. I honestly don't.
Sorry.
So Tommy, as I understand it, that the approval of this does not mean we're obligated to go ask for $7.5 million. We would be obligated to ask for something that amount or lower, depending on our need. With the again, and I really feel that some of the legislation that's being proposed to help local government will give us some relief. And I'm hoping that this council will be able to look at areas where we could reduce our expenses. So I understand the predicament, and I'm glad that you're deferring, recommending to defer the next one. So I yield.
Councilmember Black has his.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What I want to say is, we're asking for the $7.5 million. First of all, this needs to go to the bond commission for approval. It has to be approved. After that, right, Jason can elaborate on this, but after that, it needs to come back to y'all again for final approval. Right, and you're exactly right. We can ask for the $7.5 million, just like last year. We asked for, I think it was $7 million. We only borrowed $1 million because that's all I needed. If we don't need it, if we get funding from the state, then we won't use it. But I mean, we need some kind of safety net here in case this stuff doesn't come through. There's no way that we can cut $7.5 million out of the budget for the rest of the year. There's no way. I mean, we would have to cut almost half of the workforce at least. So, I mean, I just can't, that's not a viable option. That'll help for next year, absolutely. But for this year to get us out of this cash issue, there's no way we could do that.
Well, again, Tommy, I think it's incumbent upon us to seriously look at our expenses and make some changes there. And all we can do is hope and pray that there'll be some relief from above.
I agree. We definitely need to look at the expenses and cut where we can, and do that and raise the fees where we can. But like I said, it's still not going to get us out of this cash issue this year. There's no way.
Councilmember Black has his hand raised.
Mr. Black?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This will be my last comment on this. So I'll try to make it as brief as possible. Tommy, I do agree with you, but I do have some concerns with going to the bond commission as a first part of this resolution just to ask for the $7.5 million. Because I believe if we do that, we're providing this council and the administration and the employees of this administration and the residents of this parish with some false hope. I'll go back to what Mr. Akers said before, that we want to do this to make up revenue. This is not making up revenue because this is not revenue. A bond is not revenue. A bond is a loan, period. It's not to make up revenue. We have a shortfall that Mr. Akers had just said of 7.5 projected, 7.5 that Tommy has anticipated of an unanticipated shortfall for the remainder of 2020. However, we had a budget hearing last November in which everyone of this council was made aware that in 2021 and 2022, specifically 2022, that we could have upwards of a $17 million shortfall. So we know this is not unanticipated shortfall. This is we know there's going to be a shortfall in the next 2 years after 2020, after the unanticipated revenue shortfall of 7.5 in 2020. So we've done nothing, absolutely zero, nothing from this council to make legislation to reduce that potential shortfall for 2021 and 2022. We haven't. We've maybe nickel and dimed a few things here and there. We've got some other suggestions, but we haven't taken any real action. So to say that the $7.5 million of an unanticipated shortfall needs to be made up by a bond as make-up revenue is not accurate, because it's not making up revenue. It's creating more debt. The debt that we've been talking about for the last 5 years of over $200 million, and I'm sure it's down from that on the bond money. And my fear is that if we continue down this path of let's go out and get a revenue bond or a revenue note or a revenue anticipation note or whatever you want to call it, is that it makes this government as a whole, it makes President Lapine, it makes myself, it makes everybody else on this council lazy. It makes us lazy because we don't do the hard work to reduce the expenditures and reduce what costs us money the most to save money. So yeah, the easy way out is to go ahead and approve this, have you go to the bond commission and approve 7.5, come back to the council, and you know what? We'll get through this year. But you know what? In 2021 and 2022, all the way up to 2042, when this bond is done, or whatever the date is, we're in debt. We're in trouble. We're looking for ways to cut. Now's the time to do it, period. So passing this, in my opinion, and I'll get off my soapbox now with this last comment. If we do this, we're making ourselves lazy. We're not doing the work we were elected to do. So let's roll up our sleeves and do the work before we decide to pass a resolution or subsequently an ordinance to make a loan. That's all I have, and I'll rest.
Councilmember Newberry has her hand raised.
Mrs. Newberry?
There's no light at the end of the tunnel. And if we don't put our heads together as not just as an administration board, but as a board, the oil field's not coming back. I'm sorry. Bo Black has said it over and over again. My husband works in oil field. It's not coming back. It's not coming back to Plaquemine. So there's no light at the end of the tunnel. If we don't start making budget cuts and look at other ways to increase revenue, and if we're just going to keep borrowing money like this every year, Tommy, I mean, it's going to be nonstop. And we just need to work together as an administration and a board. And, you know, some things were presented today. Bo's had some great ideas with selling property. I've tried to pass the legislation. It didn't work. I mean, when are we going to start, you know, thinking what's good for the parish? So, are you?
Ms. Newberry? Ms. Newberry can answer that. I agree with you 100%. And Bo also, we didn't do the work. The work wasn't done. We didn't make the cuts. I mean, all we did is took the money out of the fund balances and we balanced the budget last year. That's all we did. So our hands is forced. I mean, there was no additional cash that was put in here so we can receive it. I told y'all last year that we run out of cash again this year, and we're doing it. Now, I agree.
And I think we, you know, unfortunately, this pandemic that we're in is definitely an eye opener, and we need to get off our butts and we need to do something. Excuse my language.
But the problem is we're too late this year. I mean, this year, you know, you only have, it's May already. You know, you start making cuts, even if we, you know, I hate to say we did layoffs now, you wouldn't see that until September of this year. It takes that long to get it done. You're only looking at maybe 3 months of savings for the year. I mean, so when I run out of money in August or September, how are we going to pay the bills? I mean, everything will have to stop. I mean, we won't be able to pay anything. You know, and payroll will be at risk. I just don't know what the answer is. You know, how am I supposed to make the payments that are there for insurance, for payroll, and those type of things without shutting down everything? Like I said, I agree with you. That stuff needs to be done. We need to raise revenue. We need to cut expenses. I mean, I've been saying this for, since 2015. But this year, it's too late. I mean, we need to do it, but it's too late to save our cash issue. I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, when I will be out of cash, according to my estimation. Now, if we get money from the state, that's great. But is that stuff we can bank on? I don't know. I mean, if y'all want to roll the dice and do that.
How much cash we spend in a month? Is it bad?
Well,
sure it varies.
You're spending roughly $7 million a month. And then with the reduced revenue, you're looking at bringing in less than $3 million.
So if we borrow this $7 million, how far is that going to get us? Just on a monthly payroll then? I mean, a monthly budget?
If you borrowed the $7.5 million, that would get you to the end of the year. That would get you to the end of the year until you get your tax payments, which is around $13 million in January.
And what happens after that? You're just going to keep borrowing money?
Yeah. I mean, after the next year, then if we don't start, then when we do the budget for 2020, 2021, we need to raise the revenues and we need to cut as much expenses as we can, so we could try to get out of this trend. That's the problem. And I said that before. Once we started borrowing the money, it's hard to get out of it. And then the COVID-19 thing it compounded the problem twofold.
I yield to Councilmember Black.
Thank you, Ms. Newberry. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Newberry. I thought I wasn't going to speak again, but Tommy, listen, I'm not putting this on you, man. Your job is to balance the budget for the administration, not to come up and to present solutions, not to make the solutions. That's our job as the council. That's our fiduciary duty. Is to make the cuts and do what we have to do. It's not yours. Yours is exactly what you're doing. You're presenting us with exactly what needs to be presented. However, and I think you just said it, is that if we take the $7.5 million and we take this loan out, basically, it's gonna bite us for the next year and the next year and the next year and the next year and the next year. And we sit here with low revenues coming in because we have such low, low fees. And speaking of low fees, we're talking about low millages. We've listened to the assessor's office for the last 30 years about keeping our millages low, and it's at 65 mills right now. However, these barge companies are leaving. They're not staying because we're staying low. I mean, it's killing us. Kirby Barge is leaving. And yeah, somebody else is coming in, but it's only making up less than half of what we're going to get from that we receive from Kirby. So why are we sitting here, keeping our millages so low at 65 mils? It's not even comparable to anybody else in the state besides Point Coupé. And Point Coupé geographically looks nothing like Blackman's Parish. We have so many other expenses that need to be done, and the administration gave us a proposal to raise those mills upwards of almost 9 mills, which is a $9 million revenue stream, which would have covered the $7.5 million shortfall, because it would have paid for certain things that could be paid for. Mr. Gouy talked about introducing for the next election. That's something maybe we need to talk about introducing for the November election. Listen, at 65 mills, we're doing nobody favors. We're not doing anybody any favors. I represent a district that has probably the highest median income and with ad valorem taxes coming in. I think I have a lot of homes that are over $300,000, $400,000, which pays a lot of ad valorems. And the millages are going to affect those people. But they get it because I've talked to them, and they want to maintain their quality of life by paying an extra $100 or whatever it is a year on their property taxes. That's gonna benefit them and their quality of life. So if we have to raise the mills, 10 mills to 75 mills, No other barge companies are going to leave. We're already losing the biggest ones, and we're still the second lowest in the state. So my point is, we got to do that work. We got to do that. We as a council, not you, Tommy. That's not your decision to make. That's the council's decision to make. And I would hope that somebody would bring back up the millages and put them back on the ballot. I said I didn't want to tax my way out of this thing, but this was already proposed, this is a tough situation, guys. And the bottom line is, I can't support taking out a bond. I understand where you're at, Tommy, but until I see some serious effort being done, that's where I'm at.
Any more comments from the table before I move on?
Yes.
Mr. Blank.
We're in a situation where we have to fly this plane as far as we can into the crash. And we're going to need some information from the administration. What is minimum government operation? What does that look like? And that needs to be laid out very clearly. What does that look like to keep the pumps operating, to keep the most basic services intact as we go through this and figure out how to run a leaner government?
Any more comments?
I just want to make one comment from a legal point of view. Essentially, what we're talking about is when we run out of cash, two things are going to happen. Either we're going to have to lay off half of the workforce, or we're going to have to stop making payments on all existing capital projects. And what I can tell you is when we go to do that, there's going to be a floodgate of lawsuits because people are going to sue us because they're not getting paid, their subs aren't getting paid, and all these capital projects are going to come to a grinding halt. And I can promise you, we're going to be sued a ton. And then the second thing you all need to think about is if we default on those capital project payments, it's going to be hard to get any contractor to come in Blackman's Parish and do any business in the future. And if they do, the bidding process, they're going to build in a premium into the bidding process when it comes to doing business in Blackman's Parish. Now, we've had a bad reputation over the last 2 years because of some other issues, which I won't get into. This administration and the legal department has done a lot of work trying to rebuild the credibility as it relates to these public work projects and moving forward and in the best light possible. But I just want everyone to be aware that that is potentially one of the consequences down the line if we run out of cash and we cannot pay these contractors on these public work projects.
Thank you, Mr. Beers. Any more comments from the table?
There are no hands raised.
Say that again, Kim.
There are no hands raised at this time.
Okay. I'll defer this item.
I'm sorry, there is. Councilmember Newberry raised your hand.
Ms. Newberry?
That's okay. I was going to suggest a deferral. Thank you.
We will defer this item. And we'll defer item L. We'll move to item M.
An ordinance to accept a portion bid from Hillcore One Energy LP for mineral lease on Parish Tract 20-1, located in Section 17, Township 21 South, Range 27 East, Bureau Levy District, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana. Estimated to contain approximately 36 acres out of a total of 392 acres, more or less, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
We have a motion by Mr. Blank, seconded by, I'll second it.
Councilmember Roussel raised his hand.
Okay, Mr. Roussel, seconded by Mr. Roussel. Mr. Blank?
I have a question.
Okay. Well, I'll second it. Then Mr. Blank.
Mr. Blank, unmute.
Go ahead, Mr. Russo.
I was going to ask, is LV on the line? LV Cooley.
No, Mr. Russo, LV's not on the line. He did get sick. He sent me some notes on this. As you know, he handles it. He said we recommend acceptance. There was only one bid, that it equals or exceeds the last per acre bid approved by the council. and the approval will permit Hillcore to rework the well, and we will get the royalty payments. Unfortunately, can't be in. If there's questions beyond that, we may have to defer it.
Well, I'm not going to move or ask anybody to defer it, but the question was the acreage out of the 36 out of a total of 392. I was going to ask LV if he shows up, who nominated the 392 acres? Or was it nominated just 36 acres?
Mr. Russo, I was just made aware not long ago that he would not be on the line, and unfortunately, I didn't research the issue in depth before the meeting. So, you know, it's either defer it or, you know, I don't think there's, you know.
I'm not going to ask for deferral. If the board wants to do it, but I think that it's important that we get him a phone wherever he is.
All right, move over this one. I'll see if I can try to get him on the phone and not stream him in, but maybe through my voicemail, through my cell phone, get him through here. So let's pass this over. I'll try to get him on the phone, and I'll let you know when that happens.
We'll move to item N.
Just to let you know, the last item on the agenda is to reject
Right.
a bid.
All right.
Look, I don't want to delay anybody anymore, so I'll expect a call from LV in the next week or so to explain it to me. How's that?
Well, just give me 1 second. Let me see if he answers.
Well, that would be nice.
Taking bets?
Yeah, I bet he answers. Where are we betting?
I'm sorry, we do have the suspension if you want to move to that. I don't know.
I don't want to delay the meeting anymore.
It went to voicemail.
I lost.
What is your wishes, Richie, on item M?
We'll defer it.
Okay, we'll defer item M.
Well, let me ask you this. I don't want to send a bad signal about deferring this, Richie. I mean, you know, I raised the issue only because I thought LV would maybe surface somewhere and be able to answer it. But I mean, we need to be as accommodating to the company as possible, and I'd hate to see that we deferred it for my question in any way.
You do a lot of work.
And there was only one bidder.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you got a different reason, Richie, that's up to you, but don't defer it on my account.
It's
Just to let y'all know, Councilmember Gooey has his hand raised also.
Okay.
it's a little bit less than $8,000. You know, it's $220 an acre or so. I mean, whatever y'all would like to do.
Yeah, Richie, I think we ought to move on this.
All right. Call a question.
Any more questions from the table? Question? Been called for? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bartholomew,
Yes.
Councilmember Black,
Abstain.
Councilmember Arbro,
Yes.
Councilmember Gooey. Councilmember Gooey, please unmute yourself. Oh,
Yes. You heard me?
yes, I did. Thank you. Councilmember Roussel,
Yes.
Councilmember Newberry,
Yes.
Councilmember LaFrance,
Yes.
Councilmember Blank,
Yes.
Councilmember Kognovich,
Abstain.
and the ordinance passes by a vote of 7-2.
Thank you. We'll move to item 10.
And
Would you
will
like
be
to-
deferred or withdrawn?
So, well, N was to reject it.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, so
Withdraw.
withdraw it.
Item 10A, resolution wherein suspension is being sought. We have one, a resolution requesting the CPRA to adjust the freshwater diversions in and around Lake Leary, Spanish Lake, and Grand Lake, as well as in the upper marshes of the East Bank of Plaquemines Parish and other Boston Fire with respect thereto.
Mr. Bartholomew.
Offer for suspension.
We have a motion by Mr. Bartholomew. I'll second. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Bartholomew?
This is for suspension.
Yeah.
Yes, for suspension only. Councilmember
Right.
Black?
Abstain.
Councilmember Arbro?
Yes.
Councilmember Gooey? Unmute yourselves, please. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Roussel?
Yes.
Councilmember Newberry?
Yes.
Councilmember LaFrance?
Yes.
Councilmember Blank?
To be clear, this is just on the suspension?
Correct.
Suspension.
And Councilmember Kognovich?
Yes.
And the suspension passes by a vote of 8 to 1 abstention.
Thank you.
A resolution requesting the CPRA to adjust the freshwater diversions in and around Lake Leary, Spanish Lake, and Grand Lake, as well as in the upper marshes on the east bank of Plaquemines Parish and otherwise to comply with respect thereto.
We have a motion by Mr. Bartholomew, seconded by Mr. LaFrance. Mr. Bartholomew.
Yes, what this says, St. Bernard called Councilman, and they had just some legislation and asked us to support that in reference to controlling the Carnarvon project up there. That when it don't have to run, we shouldn't be running it because they're having a lot of issues with the fresh water being diverted, constantly running on their end for the oyster beds, and also a lot of the mosquitoes, because fresh water, he said there has a lot of mosquitoes and guys going fishing in that area. And he said he just want to see if we could support that. And that was the question. I said, I'll see. I'll try to bring it up. And if he passed suspension, I'll ask council members to get on board with the council members in St. Bernard. And also ask the president to endorse it if it passes, that he agrees with it, because the president in St. Bernard also had agreed to it. So that's what it is, and asking the council to support that legislation.
Any questions or comment from the table?
Yes.
Mr. Blank.
Yes. I mean, can we get recommendations from a coastal scientist? You know, we have Brent Dewey and those folks seemingly on the staff. They're doing a lot of special projects for us. Has anybody consulted with them to get their opinion?
Opinion on what reference to what you're saying?
On the diversion operation strategies. Anybody ever contacted CPRA? And
that's just that's the fresh water project in the Carnarvon pumping going on for Carnarvon. That's not anything else they're doing, fresh water stuff. That's just for the Carnarvon to control that salinity control in that area.
I understand.
That's the siphon up there that's running. The state controls it. And CPRA runs it, and he just asking the CPRA to try to monitor it and close it when they don't have to run it. Now, scientific work, I don't know, they got a lot of stuff out there, pros and cons, however you want to find it. That's another topic, another day, another time. You know, they're just trying to get some relief right at this point in time. If you want to go further with that, then that's all right too.
I yield.
We have we have 4 council members with their hands raised. The first one was Councilmember Black.
Mr. Black?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bartholomew just said that all this resolution does is to ask the CPRA to run it when they don't need to run it. But that's accurate.
Yeah, to control it. That's to control it.
Yeah, well,
it's just to run, they don't control it.
Right, but it's
the
specifically.
The CPRA has to approve whatever they do to that. And they're having, the other reason why it's up, because they're having a meeting coming up pretty soon. And they just want to have the legislation to take it with them, to go up there and support, ask the CPRA to support it.
No, I get why the resolution is being introduced or being voted on, but I think this, you know, what it's doing is it's asking, it's saying that the Plaquemines Parish Council is requesting that the salinity be kept at 5 to 15 parts per thousand year round. I'd like to ask the administration, Mr. Helmers or Mr. Lapine, if they spoke to Mr. McGinnis or anybody from the St. Bernard Parish Council in regards to their position, or if the council from St. Bernard has passed the exact same resolution. And
well, I think you got a copy. You didn't get a copy of that resolution, Mr. Black, from St. Bernard?
No, I'm sorry. I did not send that out. I apologize. But it is.
I told him to send all the council members a copy of the resolution from St. Bernard because it's a ditto.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Bartholomew. I didn't see the resolution. So, I mean, that's why I'm questioning whether or not, you know.
You have the right to do that.
Okay.
That was my intent, to make sure everybody get a copy of that so you can look at it, you know?
Yeah, I would want to look at it first, honestly. And, you know, I would also like to have some type of, you know, I'm kind of hesitant about the resolution just because, you know, as you know, you may have heard, or since I have heard that, you know, one of our representatives from Plaquemines Parish was removed from the their committee position on DNR and you know, over a CPRA issue, and I just don't want to have any more bad blood at the state level.
Well, maybe maybe the president had spoken with the parish president, a guy McGinnis of St. Bernard, because I passed it by him as well. And Kurt said he was going to give McGinnis a call. I don't know if he had a chance to do that, to have a conversation with him or not. You can ask him.
Yeah, okay, I'll yield and ask the administration. Thank you.
Any other comment from the table?
We have Dr. Gui who has his hand raised.
Thank you. Thank you, sir and ma'am. The purpose of the Carnarvon siphon was to actually control salinity. So I think that whatever we do today, that the parameters under which the siphon operates are not going to change unless for some reason there's been an alteration. Maybe too much water's been coming through, unbeknownst to some people. So I don't see where passing this thing would be detrimental, because the control of that salinity structure is going to be run on the guidelines that it was set up to be run. So it is quite possible that water sampling in some of these areas has been deficient with the COVID issue we have, and it needs to be brought to their attention. I don't think what we say and ask them to do is going to make them do anything. But I think the attention is a good thing, and I use.
That's true.
Any more comments from the table? Is there any more comments from the table?
There are no hands raised right now.
Question been called for? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bartholomew?
Yes.
Councilmember Black?
Abstain.
Councilmember Arbro?
Abstain.
Councilmember Gui?
Yes.
Councilmember Roussel?
Yes.
Councilmember Newberry?
Abstain.
Councilmember LaFrance?
Yes.
Councilmember Blank?
No.
Councilmember Kognovich?
Yes.
And the resolution passes by a vote of 5 yeses, 1 no, and 3 abstentions.
Thank you.
I want to thank you, Councilmember. St. Bernard councilmen would like to thank you for supporting that form. Get behind them on the issue. Now, let them know you did.
Thank you. Item B?
Defer.
Item
District
C?
9 update, Councilman, oh,
Item C?
District 5 update, Councilmember Roussel, Susie Bayou update.
Yes, I had deferred this in the past, asking the administration to explain why we were deferring the project, because we were looking for a different disposal site. And I was wondering where the original disposal site was and what the new disposal site is.
Okay.
It's being held up by the Corps and CPA right now, waiting for the authorization of the new disposal sites. Now, I'm reading this from Mr. Dugas. The previous landowner had passed away, and a new.
Hello? We missed most of that.
They're mute. They're unmuted. Something on their end.
Hello?
Might have passed away with the owner.
I'll defer the item unless he, hello?
Mr. Roussel, what you want to do?
I want to get an answer, but if I can't hear him, I guess I'll defer it.
Kim,
Yes, sir.
can we get him back or what?
They're still appearing to be in the meeting and they are unmuted on my end. I don't know what else to do.
Ask one more time if they're there. If they're not there, we'll move on. I'll defer it.
Are the administration members there? Hello?
I'll defer the item.
We'll move to the next item.
D, District 8 update, Councilmember Blank.
Mr. Blank?
He shook his head. I think he meant defer.
All right, defer that. We'll move to item E.
District 3 update, Councilmember Arborough.
Defer.
F, District 1 update, Councilmember Bartholomew, update on East Bank levies.
Mr. Bartholomew?
He's still in the meeting and he is unmuted on my end.
Let's move on. This is wasting time.
Yep.
G, District 7 update, Councilmember LaFrance.
I just want to thank the council member for handling our business in such a professional manner. I think that we are going to earn the respect of our people in the parish. Our reputation of governing can only.
I'm back on. Something had happened, y'all. They cut me off.
Okay. And to the council members, if y'all would like to have an emergency budget hearing or revised budget hearing, just give me a call. Let me know if y'all want to have an emergency revised budget hearing. We'll move.
Hello.
Hey.
I'm back on. I got cut off. You passed my item up yet?
Okay, go back to District 1 update.
Yeah.
Update on East Bank levies.
All right, that's one update. First, I want to thank Mr. Scott Roussel for working. So I try to get this thing done with the Corps of Engineers, the back levy with the culverts, and got us back into the federal system. And it means a lot. And he's working on getting CPRA. Hopefully, they will take care of the other 8 culverts, and then we can finish that particular project and get us up to date on the federal certified levy. Also, we're concerned about on the northern end, the back levee have some rodents, some pigs tore up the top of the levee. That's going to have to be repaired. So he's working on that as well, trying to get all that in place so that we can get some dirt in there and fix that up. District 1. Mr. Lapina still around? Hello?
They're still here in the meeting, but I don't hear.
Not answer.
No.
All right, I have a question I want to. Maybe you can send him a text for me tomorrow. Ask him about the bids for the generator for the courthouse. Has it gone out to bids? The generator. That's it, Kemp. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bartholomew. We'll move to item 11.
Approval of the minutes from the April 23rd, 2020 meeting and the May 4th, 2020 special meeting.
Unanimous.
Awesome.
Offered by Mr. Bartholomew, seconded by Mr. Blank. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Bartholomew,
Yes.
Councilmember Black,
Yes.
Councilmember Arbro,
Yes.
Councilmember Gooey,
Yep.
Councilmember Roussel,
Yes.
Councilmember Newberry,
Yes.
Councilmember LaFrance,
Yes.
Councilmember Kognovich.
Yes.
And the minutes are adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Motion to adjourn.
So offered.
Before I have a request, Mr. Chairman, to revert back to item 8.
Excuse me?
Yeah, before we adjourn, I'd like to revert back to item 8.
Okay.
Introduction of ordinances and resolutions.
Thank you. May I proceed, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Black.
All right, thank you. An ordinance to amend the 2020 General Fund Operating Expenditure Budget, Recreation Department by transferring $250,000 to the newly created line item identified as the Belle Chase Recreation Program, and authorize the Plaquemines Parish President or his Director of Public Service to seek out and negotiate with a professional firm for the purpose of managing said program and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. That's all.
All right, thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Russo to adjourn, second by Mr. Blank. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Bartholomew,
Yeah.
Councilmember Black,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Arbro,
Yes.
Councilmember Gooey,
Yep.
Councilmember Roussel,
Yes.
Councilmember Newberry,
Yes.
Councilmember LaFrance,
Yes.
Councilmember Blank,
Yes.
Councilmember Kognovich.
Yes.
And the motion to adjourn passes by a vote of 9-0. And I was just gonna tell,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna tell you what time it was in case you needed to know. It's not.
No, I got it.
Sorry.
The Parish Council meeting is now adjourned at 9:31 p.m.